In this video, we're going to be learning how to perform mathematical operations using rational numbers. Okay, so just to refresh, mathematical operations involve addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay, so let's say we have the fraction negative 4 over 5 plus 2 over negative 3. So these two fractions are both rational, right? They're both rational numbers. Because just to refresh, a rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction of two integers. Okay, so both of these are written as a fraction of two integers. Okay, so in this case, the integers being negative 4 and 5, and in this case, the integers being 2 and negative 3. So our next step is now to add them, right? So how do we add fractions? Well, we have to find the common denominator, right, between the denominators. In this case, what you may notice that's different is we have a negative number and a positive number. So when this is the case, what we usually do is we move the negative. Instead of writing the negative in front of the 3, we move it on the top to make the 2 a negative. Okay, so what that does is basically allows us to have a common denominator with the same sign. Okay, so it allows us to have a common denominator which is both positive. So when I do that, this problem changes into negative 4 over 5 plus negative 2 over 3 instead of 2 over negative 3. So basically 2 over negative 3 is the exact same as negative 2 over 3. Okay, and that's because, for example, let's say we had 2 over negative 3. If you were to do this on your calculator, you would get a decimal number. Okay, you get negative 0.66 repeating, to be exact. How about if you type negative 2 over 3 on your calculator? What would you get? Well, you would actually get the same thing. You would get negative 0.66 repeating. Okay, and you can even try this on your calculator. You will get these two results. So what do we notice here? Well, we notice that these answers are exactly the same. In this case, we get negative 0.66 repeating, and in this case, we get negative 0.66 repeating. Okay, so that tells us that 2 over negative 3 is the exact same as negative 2 over 3. And that's because whenever we divide a positive by a negative number, the result is always going to be negative. So since our fraction is the same, so since our numbers are the same, so we have 2 over 3 in both cases, it doesn't matter where we put the negative, right? Because we know when we divide a positive by a negative number, our result is always going to be negative. So it doesn't matter if the 3 is negative or the 2 is negative. As long as we have the same numbers, so 2 as the numerator and 3 as the denominator, we will get a negative number, and that negative number is going to be the same as we saw in this case. So oftentimes in math, whenever we come across this, we usually write, instead of writing the negative or picking where we write the negative, we just write the fraction like this. We just write negative 2 over 3. So we write the negative in the middle, okay? And this basically tells us, well, the negative could either be on the 2 or on the 3, right? It doesn't really matter. So that's why we just write it in the middle. But it's not wrong either way. If you choose to write the negative beside the 2 or the 3, both methods are correct. Okay, so that was just a little side note. So going back to our problem, so since we know that 2 over negative 3 is the same thing as negative 2 over 3, we can move the negative on the top, right? So now what this does is, this allows us to have both denominators as positive. So now we can easily find the common denominator. Okay, so what's the common denominator between 5 and 3? Well, the lowest common multiple is 15, right? The lowest common multiple is 15. So our lowest common denominator is 15. So we can rewrite both fractions over 15. Okay, and we have to multiply the negative 4 by 3. So we get negative 12. And we have to multiply negative 2 by 5, right? So we get negative 10. So now since we have common denominators, so now we can go ahead and just add the numerators. So negative 12 plus negative 10 is negative 22, right? Over 15. So this is the right answer, but if you wanted to simplify it further, because this is an improper fraction, right? We have a numerator that's larger than a denominator, okay? We can convert this into a mixed number, okay? So how do we do that? Well, 22 over 15 is 1 wholes, okay? And how many are left over after we've have 115 and 22? Well, there's 7 left over, right? So it's going to be 7 over 15 because we keep the denominator here. And don't forget the negative. So this converted into a mixed number is negative 1 and 7 over 15. So if you need more detail in how to convert from an improper fraction to a mixed number, please refer to my previous videos. So let's now do another example, a slightly more challenging example. Okay, so let's say we had negative 2 and 1 over 2 multiplied by 5 and 1 over 3, and then that divided by negative 1 and 7 over 9. So now looking at this expression, first of all, we should think of BEDMAS. Okay, so BEDMAS tells us that we have to do brackets first, exponents second, division, multiplication, and then addition and subtraction. Okay, so in this case, we have a multiplication here, and then we have a division here. Okay, these two numbers are being multiplied, and then we have a division by this number here. Okay, so remember in BEDMAS, division and multiplication have equal priority, right? They have equal priority. However, we must perform them from left to right. Okay, so that means we have a multiplication here and division here, right? They have equal priority, but we have to perform them from left to right. So that means we have to perform this first and then perform this. So let's go ahead and multiply this by this. So I think for multiplication, the best bet would be to convert this and this into improper fractions, right? Because remember, just like in addition and subtraction, we cannot multiply the whole numbers by for example, the whole number here by the whole number here, and then multiply the fractions by the fraction over here. Remember, multiplication doesn't work that way. So what we usually do is convert the mixed numbers into improper fractions. So let's convert the mixed numbers into improper fractions. So negative 2 and 1 over 2. When we convert that into a mixed number, we get negative 5 over 2. And then when we convert 5 and 1/3 into an improper fraction, we get 16 over 3. Okay, and let's convert this into an improper fraction as well. So we'll get 1 times 9 is 9, plus 7 is 16. So we get 16 over, and we keep the denominator, so we get 16 over 9. And also don't forget we have a negative sign up front. So let's go ahead and perform this operation now. So negative 5 times 16 is negative 80 over 2 times 3 is 6. So we have negative 80 over 6 divided by negative 16 over 9. So remember, when we're dividing fractions, division of fractions is the same thing as multiplying by the negative reciprocal. So what do I mean by that? Well, negative 80 over 6 is the same thing. So negative 80 over 6 divided by negative 16 over 9 is the same thing as negative 80 over 6 multiplied by the reciprocal, or multiplied by 9 over 16. Okay, and also we have the negative up front. So remember, whenever you're dividing fractions, we don't directly divide them. What you do is you multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, and if you need a refresher on multiplying and dividing fractions, please refer to my previous video on multiplying and dividing fractions. Okay, so what's the next step? Well, now we just multiply these out, right? But to make our problem easier, what we can do is simplify our fractions here. Because negative 80 over 6, for example, well, we can rewrite that as what? Well, 80 and 6 are both divisible by 2, right? They're both divisible by 2. So we can write negative 80 over 6 as negative 40 over 3. Okay? And then multiplied by negative 9 over 16. Again, we can simplify this fraction further. Because 40 and 16 are both divisible by 8. Right? So 40 and 16 are both divisible by 8. So we can rewrite this as fraction again as negative 5 over 3 multiplied by negative 9 over 2. Right? Because we divide 40 and 16 by 8 because they're both divisible by 8. So that simplifies our fraction. Now if we go ahead and perform this operation, negative 5 times negative 9 is 45 over 6. Because 9 times 5 is 45 and 3 times 2 is 6. So this is our answer for this problem. However, notice that this is written as an improper fraction. Okay, it's written as an improper fraction. So again, if you wanted to simplify this further, we can write it as a mixed number. So how many times is 6 going to 45? Well, it goes into 45 7 whole times, right? So 7 times 6 is 42. And to get 45, we have 3 left over. Okay, so it's going to be 3 over 6. So 7 and 3 over 6. And we can actually simplify this even further. Because 3 over 6 is the same thing as 1 over 2, right? Because we can divide both numerator and denominator by 3. So if we do that, we get 7 and 1 over 2. So this is the most simplified answer.